Welcome everyone, it's Monday night and we are talking about safety tonight.
Just be very careful there, okay?
Jeremy, you've got your safety gear on.
I know, you haven't got anything. Look, I've got
Oregano.
I've got oregano. It's a dangerous oil. Don't you know anything about this stuff?
No, clearly not.
I've been on the internet and let me tell you, this is bloody crazy stuff. We're using essential oils. You've got no protective gear on. You've got no eyewear on. If this gets on your testicles, you're a dead man. You don't have
Lucky
any. So tonight, I feel like such an idiot. Do I look like an idiot?
Yes, clearly.
Okay.
Only I can see that you look like an idiot.
Tonight, hi everyone. I've got protective gear on. Tonight we're talking about safety with oils, and there is a lot of stuff on the internet that says that oils are dangerous and you shouldn't use them and blah. And is there any truth in that?
Well, do you believe everything that you read on the internet?
I believe most things. That's why I'm so screwed up.
And the thing is that a lot of the stuff on the internet, people have done crazy stuff and they, just didn't exercise any common sense at all. But the other thing is that it all comes down to quality, the quality of the essential oils and how you use them, who you use them on. All the things that we're going to talk about tonight, it really does make a difference. And at the end of the day, if you go and read everything on the internet, you wouldn't think that oils worked at all, because there's so many stories out there about, people having all kinds of reactions and doing crazy things.
So tonight we actually want to give you some good information.
Yeah.
And what's your qualification for giving us some good information?
So I am a certified clinical aromatherapist, as are a couple of other people in our team. So, we wouldn't use Young Living oils if we didn't believe that they were the best out there on the market, and that, you can use essential oils safely for all kinds of wonderful things.
Yeah. So Kim's a certified clinical aromatherapist. I've just been certified.
Yeah. So I mentioned that it comes down to quality. And I guess one of the things that I want to talk about when it comes to quality is that, there are different chemical constituents in different plants that, if we don't get the whole bundle or the whole kit and caboodle, as my dad would say, then of course there's going to be issues. And that's what happens when you don't distill essential oils in the right way. So for an example would be myrrh, okay? Now, if you broke down the individual constituents that are in myrrh oil, you would think, oh my gosh, you should never use myrrh oil. But if you have a look on a lot of aromatherapy pages, they will tell you that myrrh oil is one of the safest oils out there. It can even be used with children. But the individual constituents in here are quite dangerous if you were to isolate them. But what happens is it's a thing called quenching. And I'm sure, if I talk too much about the science tonight, the only person who'll be tuning in is Vicky Pollard.
And me, I like the science.
But the thing about myrrh oil and other oils, but in particular myrrh, is that this thing called quenching happens. And so there are major and minor constituents in this oil. And when they actually get together, they make a total new, it's kind of like they balance each other and they make a total new, constituent, if you like. So that's why in myrrh oil, those constituents are actually safe, okay? But if you break them up individually, and that's what happens if you don't distill essential oils properly, you're only going to get some of the constituents in here. You're not going to get all those little minor ones that actually help to quench the oil, okay? So you want to make sure that your oils are distilled properly. You want to make sure that they haven't had anything added to them to be adulterated, because when you start adding in other chemicals, they change the chemical constituents in the oil as well. And they start adding nasty little things, and that's when people get reactions. So often people are getting reactions because the oils have been adulterated, which means that they've added things like propylene glycol and all kinds of other nasty synthetic chemicals to the essential oils. It's not the essential oil themselves that has caused the reaction, but it's the other chemical. Another oil that I want to talk about that where an interesting thing happens is wintergreen. Now, being an aromatherapist, in Australia, the actual governing body for aromatherapy, yes, actually says that when you can't join their aromatherapy association if you use wintergreen in your practice. Okay. Now the thing about wintergreen is that it contains a natural constituent called methyl salicylate. Okay. Now methyl salicylate has certain numbers of oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon molecules, and when they're together, they help with all kinds of things. But the thing is that I'm trying to be compliant here so we can share this video outside of this group. But methyl salicylate has actually been made in a lab, and it's the main ingredient in aspirin. Okay, so a lot of you would know that you can't take heaps and heaps of aspirin because bad things will happen. Okay, now it's because of the synthetic version of methyl salicylate, which, guess what, has the same amount of oxygen molecules, the same amount of hydrogen molecules, and the same amount of carbon molecules. But what's happened is it's sort of like they're not arranged in the same way. So it's kind of like building a house, right? You could have two houses in Sydney or wherever, but I often drive through Western Sydney on our way to Canberra or Melbourne or somewhere, and I look at all these houses and they look exactly the same from the outside. But when you go inside, sometimes they're reversed. So you might have the garage on this side and the lounge room on this side, or you might have the kitchen behind the garage or the and so from the outside they look the same, and that's the same as methyl salicylate, the natural version and the synthetic version. What's happened is they've reversed those carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen molecules, and therefore they're no longer safe. So it's the synthetic methyl salicylate that you need to be worried about. But it gives oils like wintergreen, which are basically 97% methyl salicylate, a really, really bad name. And so, that's where you see things on the internet, and people get scared about it, but it all comes down to the quality of the essential oils, and, making sure that the right constituents are in the bottle. The other thing I want to talk about is that a lot of information on the internet talks about these different schools. Now, I'm not a big believer in the whole schools in terms of, you go to an aromatherapy school and they teach this or that or the other. It's more around the term schools of thought, okay, or practice, if you like. I much prefer the idea of practice. So in I guess the more traditional methods of aromatherapy were practiced in France. That's where it came from. That's where the term aromatherapy came from a guy called René Gadafosse. He went and coined the term. And so in France, they do everything when it comes to essential oils. They use them in culinary stuff. They use them for medications. They diffuse them. They use them topically. They use them neat as well as diluted. They pretty well use them for everything. But what happened was when aromatherapy got taken to other parts of the world, it kind of got hybridized. Is that the right word? And so when they went to Germany, they started diffusing oils. They thought that was the best way to go. Okay, so they don't do a lot of, they don't use them in their cooking, and they don't use them topically. They're more using them for diffusion. And then when it got taken by Marguerite Maury, who is another famous person in the aromatherapy world, she took it to Britain, to England, and she couldn't get the same quality essential oils as what she'd been used to when she did her training in France, and she was having all kinds of reactions. She was using them in skincare and massage, and they were having all these really bad reactions, and she was like, we need to dilute. And so that's how the English model of aromatherapy, which is a lot of what's taught here in Australia and in America, that's how you'll hear aromatherapists talk about you can only use essential oils diluted. Now, diluted is definitely the safest way to go, particularly if you're new to essential oils, because essential oils can cause all kinds of skin reactions, and, particularly on the elderly and children, you want to make sure that you always dilute. And dilution actually helps the oils go further. If you're applying oils topically, in order for them to get through the fat layers on your skin, it's a good idea to put them into a fat, because that's when they're fat soluble, which means they're absorbed through the fat, and they're going to get into your bloodstream a lot faster. That's why we call carrier oils carrier, because that's what they do. They carry it in through the fat molecules. But that doesn't mean that you can't use essential oils neat. It just means that there are some that we wouldn't use neat, but it just means that you're better off diluting them if you want them, to go a bit further. Like if I want to massage a tired muscle on the bottom of my leg, I'm not going to use neat pan away. I'm going to dilute it in some coconut oil so that it goes a bit further.
Yep.
All right, so in terms of dilution, we always dilute for babies and children. Now, we have total other videos, and I have a chart on my website and also in our Welcome Team Welcome book, which shows you the proper dilution for babies and children. So I'm not going to cover off on that. Yep. But do your research if you've got babies or children. Also, if you've got babies under 2, I don't generally recommend peppermint or eucalyptus because they can cause respiratory distress in some children. And I tend to steer away from the hot oils like clove and cinnamon as well, particularly if you're diffusing thieves around children. It can be really drying to everybody's throat. Often when I've been diffusing it at home, I'll walk past and I feel this little tickle in the bottom of my throat, and it's because of the cinnamon and clove that are quite drying to your throat. So you don't want to do that with children. So there are, once again, lots of information out there on oils to avoid with children. We've got another whole workshop on using essential oils with children. And the other thing is dilute with pets. Particularly the hairier the animal, the more you need to dilute, because the hair actually absorbs the essential oil. So if you've got a non-hairy dog like a Chihuahua, and also size matters as well, but say you're comparing a Chihuahua to something like a Maltese Terrier, you're going to have to use less oil on the Maltese than on the Chihuahua because the hair absorbs it. There are 3 places you can't use essential oils. Do you know where they are, Jeremy?
In your eyes?
Mm-hmm.
In your ear?
Yep. Yep. Now, that's not to say that there aren't recipes out there for, like you could go online and find recipes for all kinds of things to, hemorrhoids to whatever. But don't just go on Pinterest and find a recipe and think that it's going to work. It's really scary. You saw Jeremy before with the tongs with the oregano oil. Let me tell you, you do not want to be getting oregano oil anywhere near your vagina or your penis or your anus. So, only follow recipes and things like that for, from people like, actual qualified aromatherapists.
You know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Not someone who's just made it up and put it out there on Facebook. You don't want to put oils in your ear cavity. Sure, we put oils around our ear cavity and even sometimes on cotton balls and put it in, but you never drip oils directly into your ear cavity, and you certainly don't put them directly into your eye. Anywhere where there's mucous membranes. When doing it around the eye, I like to use either my pinky or my pointer finger, and I just dab around the eye area. When it comes to putting oils in the bath, because you can't, you don't really want to get, even peppermint oil down there, you want to make sure that they're diluted a fair bit. Now, the best way to dilute an essential oil, remember before I talked about it being fat soluble? Well, that's true, okay? So you want to dissolve it in a fat. And so the best kind of fat is a bath gel. So like Young Living's bath gel is a great way, or a Castile soap, or something like that. Even aloe vera or a milk, or that's always better. Something that's fatty rather than Epsom salts or bicarb. That would be my next choice. And obviously, if you just drip them directly into the bath, you'll end up with big globules of oil sitting on top of the water, because oil and water don't mix. And you hop in the bath after you've put peppermint or something in there, and let me tell you, it's very, very cooling down there, okay? And also with children, you don't want them sitting, because they're going to sit a lot lower in the bath than you are, and you don't want them sitting there breathing in those really high, intense oils. Some essential oils are contraindicated for certain health conditions, okay? Now, I have read online lots of posts where people have said that asthma is, their child reacts to lavender or eucalyptus or peppermint or whatever. And that's, can be true, because some children just react to different things. So always go low and slow with any oil, and that comes to applying them topically or applying them or diffusing them. So, make sure that like if your child begins to react, then stop diffusing that essential oil. In terms of pregnancy, we have a whole other video on using essential oils during pregnancy, but the main ones that are, contraindicated are things like clary sage, hyssop, basil, fennel. So they are contraindicated. I haven't got sage here, but sage is another one that's contraindicated. Now you'll find that hyssop is contraindicated for a lot of things, okay? So hyssop is contraindicated for pregnancy, it's contraindicated for high blood pressure, contraindicated for epilepsy, okay? Now that's why it has one of those little caps on it. My girls call these cake caps, but basically, any of the sort of hot oils that you don't want your children getting around thieves, or anything that contains the wintergreen. So you would have seen it on the wintergreen. It's also on Panaway. So ones that you want to keep away from children have got the child-proof safety lid on them, okay? It's also on ImmuPro, and that's because it's got hyssop. So if you have someone in your family who has epilepsy or high blood pressure, you want to stay away from hyssop. The other thing is that it's also on oils like Endoflex. Some essential oil blends contain nut oils. So always read the label. Check what the ingredients are, okay? Endoflex contains sesame oil. So if you're allergic to nuts, stay away from the blends that contain nuts. The best thing to do is read the label. It tells you whether they need to be diluted, how you can use them, whether you can use them topically, culinary, like if you can put them in food or not. People say to me, how do I use oils? And I say, well, the best thing to start with is reading the labels. So always get in and read the labels. The other thing is there are, as I mentioned, certain oils that are contraindicated. Also, I mentioned high blood pressure, but there's also, if you're on certain medications, like if you're on a medication that says no grapefruit, then don't use oil with grapefruit. Don't use an essential oil blend with grapefruit. There are some oils that are anticoagulant, which means that if you're on a blood thinner like warfarin, then you shouldn't use them. So no wintergreen, no clove, they're just sort of common sense. There is a lot of reference books out there that will tell you some of the oils that are contraindicated. So just avoid those. Just trying to check my notes. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say about is photosensitive. Now, photosensitive, it means that you can't put the oils on your skin and go out in the sun. So you may remember when you were a teenager, you put lemon juice on your hair and it lightened your hair. Well, if you put lemon oil on your skin, it will do much the same thing as the lemon oil. So just make sure that, sorry, we've got a moth flying around. Just make sure that, you don't put the photosensitive oils on your skin and then go out in the sun. Once again, we have another video specifically on photosensitive oils. But as a general rule, all the citrus, except for orange and tangerine, okay? They don't seem to have photosensitivity, but your bergamot is the highest, angelica, lime, grapefruit, they're all pretty high. So, but that's it. So, it all comes down to common sense. Read the label. And if you do have a medical condition, always check with your health, your doctor or whoever provides your family with health advice, and grab a good book that's going to tell you which oils you can and can't use based on your condition. So.
Good. Having said all that, oils are so good.
Well, and I guess to be forewarned is to be forearmed. Yeah. And, we use them every day in our home, and they're my basic first aid kit. Yeah.
Just out of interest, do you know many people who've had a negative reaction to oils in all the time that you've been working as an aromatherapist and using oils?
Mostly the reactions come because the person didn't use the oil in the right way. Yep. So, putting cinnamon bark on as a cologne or something like that. Or people have developed a sensitivity over time because your body actually, I don't know if the word's habitualize but gets used to certain essential oils, and you can develop a skin sensitivity. So I know tea tree is one, and it seems that blue cypress also causes that. The same thing's true in the diffuser. Often people ask me, how come I looked up my reference book and it says only diffuse this oil for 30 minutes at a time? And I say, well, that's not because it doesn't work, it just works better in smaller doses. If you want the therapeutic benefit, diffuse for it might be 30 minutes to 60 minutes and then turn it off for 30 to 60 minutes and then put it back on. But if you're just diffusing on a daily basis to make your house smell nice, and you're not looking for that, major sort of therapeutic benefit, then sure, you can run the diffuser all day, but your body will get used to it over time. So, it's a good idea to swap it up. If you always diffuse the same thing every day, diffuse something else so that your body doesn't get so used to it.
Yep, variety is the spice of life.
That's for sure.
Thanks for your expertise there.
We will see you. Well, actually, Jeremy won't be here next week, so
No,
I
I'll be
may have a special guest.
Can I join you from a distance? Oh no, we
I
can't
think you'll
do
be
that anymore,
driving.
can we? Oh, yeah, no, I will. You're right. I'll be driving.
Yeah.
So I'll see you guys
In 2 weeks, but I'll be back.
Stay safe and keep using these oils because they're actually bloody good.
See you guys.
See ya.